Do you need me to also have any link open to
No,
check
no,
for
nothing.
comments?
Nothing.
Okay.
Don't worry. You focus because I would have more time in terms of, looking at all these chats and others while you speak. You may
Clear,
not
clear.
have time. So
And how long do we want to do this? How long are they usually? Do you need me to also have any link open to check
no,
for comments?
nothing.
Okay.
Don't worry. You focus because I would have more time. So we are already live actually
Okay.
on the channel.
Okay, cool.
And we are already live on YouTube. But
Cool. Let's begin whenever you're ready.
I think we'll wait for one more minute. As soon as it turns 11, we start conversation. No, I mean, I think we are as such good to go. But I think LinkedIn will only start at 11.
Got
So
it.
that's why I feel that let's wait a minute and then we can move forward from here.
Got it. This multi-platform
And
thing that you've got going is really cool. I'd try to chat with you offline and figure how to make this work.
oh, is it okay? That's
Because we've
interesting.
been doing Instagram only lives as a brand, and I've never actually gone into the streaming space. So I'm just starting to understand it. It's very exciting.
I am as naive as you can imagine, and I have no clues about it. I just started it because I wanted to do my learning stuff. So I was like very clear that I want to be a learner, and this is my experiment with learning. So I was like, I'm a mentor and a teacher. So what happens is you're busy giving gyan to people all the time, like passing on, passing on. So where do I get my gyan? So I was like, first thing that I have to do is I have to start learning. So I have to start the process of learning. So I would just call a couple of my friends and say, "Bhai, bata de," I just want to know. That's exactly how it started, and it has picked up. And I think it is going so lovely that I felt I initially thought of just doing one season, but it has now started with the second season, and I'm pretty happy that we have picked it up. So I think that's
No,
about it. But
fantastic. I'm going to join you in your learning journey. Help me jumpstart a few things. This is exciting. I'd love to do this more often as well.
wonderful. So I think hello everyone and good morning. Again, another Sunday morning, 11 a.m. as usual. Welcome to my LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. We are now doing a second season of this series where we are inviting amazing experts, people to talk to us, discuss things, and doing wow conversations. So and I'm sorry I was missing the last weekend. I was stuck at a place where I had limited connectivity. So thank you so much, Nikhil, for hosting my last event. But today I have Raghuveer, and all these days I have been looking for somebody who can tell me about parenting. So this is something which I was really keen on knowing. I was like wondering, this new Gen Z, I keep talking about Gen Zs, I keep talking about these younger kids. And in fact, I'm so worried, where it is going, how it is heading. And are we at all going in the right direction or not? So I also want to say thank you to Durgesh, who's one of my mentees and a very old friend. And, he connected me to Raghuveer to come on this show and, talk to us about parenting today. So Raghuveer, thank you so much for being here. And I just want to know about you a little bit before we start.
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you for having me. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I'm a recent parent, and it excites me when someone says that they have been excited to learn more about this. So, Paresh, thank you for increasing conversation about this, and I'm hoping that the people who are going to be on the live today and who are going to watch this later are also more in numbers. The interest in what is happening in parenting and how to parent and what is changing in parenting is actually growing, because it is one of those spaces that is probably not catching up at the same pace as technology is, right? Because in our work, in our professional lives, we've gotten that edge of matching whatever is moving in technology and bringing that straight into our lives. But parenting is one of those, I would say, is a lagging category. So it's important that it gets a rush right now. About me, my name is Raghuveer. I've been with startups for the past 10 years, but before that, I've always been into a bunch of hobbies and creative passions. So I started my career as a photographer. I used to
Oh,
write a lot of poetry as a kid, and I always thought that when on TV we would see these Hutch Puppy ads growing up, I was like, I want to be that guy. If I ever do work, I want to be that guy who's shooting a puppy, running around. Uh, as I grew up, I realized that things don't work that way. There's a whole branding and agency, and a whole environment around how these things get done. So ended up studying at a college called Mica, where I learned a lot about branding and marketing. Then ended up starting my career at an agency, and eventually moved to startups. So the sequence there is Uber, Ofo, Stan Plus, and NAS Academy. All of them, I was in the early stages. So in every team, I was within the first 5 members. Very privileged to have that
wow.
access. And yeah, so that ended up putting me into situations and spaces where I was almost forced to get stuff done or think with uncertainty and chaos as my environment. And yeah, just been privileged to meet great people and great mentors along the way. And here I am today, trying to build something on my own with a bunch of people that I really, really trust and work closely with. So co-founded Babyverse, joined the team that was building Babyverse about a year ago. In fact, precisely a year ago. I was just talking to my co-founder. He had reached out to me on September 15th last year. So it's like it's very close to an anniversary of me being in the space. But of course, my journey in this space started with knowing that I'm about to become a dad. So it goes slightly before that, and then there were jitters and there were moments where I was like, oh my God, what is about to happen? And then eventually I decided to do something about it, make this my own startup project.
Wow, that's so inspiring also that when you were becoming a dad, you said, okay, let's learn about it first and then probably share it out and then probably create a startup out of it. So and I just got to know that you're feeding your baby just now. So, but are you like into only telling people how to be parents to those smaller kids or the bigger ones? Because I have a lot of parents who do talk about, and I do want to talk about a lot of adult, not adult but teen kids,
Yeah,
and parents who are dealing with those kind of situations. And let's take it through a process. I think
sure.
the most important question that I really feel all the time is my problem with social media for kids.
Hmm.
I swear I can tell you that this Instagram or social media and using phones and using technology is a pain in the ass for most of the parents. They are completely frustrated. They are not able to cope up with it. Believe me, I think all parents, if they want to go on a meeting or they're busy with something, they'll first pass on the phone to their kids first, and then probably get frustrated later on when the kids are addicted to it. I have seen my daughter putting on specs just because she used too much of phone during COVID times and too much of screen time. I don't know how to handle this. And I think this is something which all the parents really struggle with. So, any thoughts on how to handle the technology problem?
Absolutely. I think when I began, right, I said this statement where technology is gone forward and parenting is still lagging, right? And it comes back to that. There are a lot of factors that basically come into this. Inherently, it has always been a space that is led by families rather than businesses, right? For example, grandmothers, grandfathers, mothers, and fathers, they are very important in what happens in this space. So, when we started entering a space where both parents are working, when we started entering a space where uh, we called what age we grew up in the age of information, right? And now we are calling it the age of intelligence. So from information to intelligence, the kind of work life priorities that we have, they've severely changed as an adult. So it's like you are adapting to this, and then you have this secondary goal that you've taken up. It's a 20-year project. It's non-negotiable. Once you have a baby, it's non-negotiable, right? And you are trying to catch up here. You also want to catch up here, but you don't have the right tools or the right techniques or the right strategies or right anything there, because no one's actually invested time and space in understanding what is there. So what has happened at large is that the space in parenting has become reactive, which means my daughter got specs, so I need to do something about it. My daughter's watching screen every time when she's eating a meal. So I need to do something about it. It was not, did I first introduce a screen to my daughter at some point in time, right? Where proactively, when you're doing something, if you're picking a new technology for your company, right, you would ensure diligence, you would ensure you speak to three
Yeah.
vendors, you will ensure that you understand it fully, you will ensure that it's the right decision or not. I mean, it's a dirty parallel, it's a blunt parallel, but it is true that this is also a project, right? And it needs that, proactive thought and investment and everything, especially when you know that the space is moving so quickly. uh,
Mhm.
One thing that stays true is that not all is bad. So I wouldn't say that, social media, technology, all of this is only got a negative angle. There is more and more research, and research is also catching up, and more research that is coming through, that is telling you how there are advantages to all of this technology that is coming through as well. So over a period of time, I hope, and I'm watching it happen, that the conversation in this space is going to become more nuanced. Where is technology a deterrent and where is technology an enabler? And even in parenting, you have that split, right? Where is it being abused versus where is it actually going to improve? A very very quick anecdote or example, it's from a research study that I read recently, that there is this overarching bad feeling about screen time, right? Every parent has discussed screen time at some point in time. And digitally, we are fully integrated, right? Look at our screen time spent. We have like 6 to 8 hours on average as an adult that we are spending on screens. And in the age of 0 to 6, where cognition is not fully developed, they are basically mirroring what's happening around them. So if they see someone on screen, they think screen is okay. So it's become normalized in their heads and spaces that screen time is obvious, and they're going to grow up and live with it more and more. So this research study that I was reading basically said that if kids are interacting on video calls, right, where there is a person on the other side, one of the key milestones that they actually achieve is called object permanence, which means if you put something inside a box, right, and you show it to them, they see that, oh, there is a ball inside that box. If you close the box, is the ball still inside it, right? Kind of like Schrodinger's cat, but to for the brain to process that that object is still there, that
Mhm.
object is permanent, is a concept that the brain has to learn and process. It's a milestone that you look forward to in developmental pediatrics, right? So when video calls happen, that there is a person on the other side gets established, and they're able to realize that, oh, it's my uncle, it's my sibling, it's my someone who's on the other side, and they're able to start engaging with them, right? Like there is no screen almost, right? They're actually going through a screen. If for example, this is again a question that I'd love to ask a lot of people who think of technology in this lens. If you went to your grandfather, or someone who passed away before this technology revolution, great grandfather maybe, you go and ask him saying, I press a button and my cousin sister who's sitting in the US is just answering and watching on video, they'll say, I'll kick your ass, that doesn't sound good, that doesn't sound true at all, you're just bluffing, right? So technology has evolved at such a rapid pace that in 20 years we're pressing a button and we're talking to whoever we want. And these folks, the kids that are born today, will live with this as their baseline. So we are the in-between generation that needs to process this transition, that needs to take ownership, saying, okay, this transition has to happen in the right way. Define the regulation and what is abuse, right? Where does it become abuse? Define that rule, and then start using this in a much more nuanced manner.
How to do this? I mean, so the question is, yes, I mean, agreed, conceptually agreed, validated. Thank you, Aisawala. But tell me, like, what to do? I mean, tell me some good, thumb rules that I think as a parent, some parents use, or some parents have proven to make it right, as case studies or anything that you have.
I think it's if you're specifically talking about technology, it's the first part is what I already touched upon, which is how do you introduce it, right? Do you introduce it as a distraction? Do you introduce that as engagement? Do you introduce that as fun or play? Do you introduce that as learning that is seen as something more serious? Or do you introduce that when they're super cranky, you want to calm them down, right? Pacification. Where are you basically using technology and why are you doing it? And are you justified in doing it? Is it because you're stressed? or is it because it is the best approach? Because in a neutral state, when we are not hungry, not angry, not lonely, not tired as adults, we call this halt, right? It's a very quick way to just know if we are taking the right decisions. When you're none of these, if I say you, hey, Paresh, do you think that introducing this is what you do in your like, completely sane, thought through space of mind? And if the answer is still yes, if the answer is well researched, then I think you are doing it in the right manner. So a lot of thought needs to be top loaded, because once behaviors get established, correcting is a much harder thing than prevention, right? Like in most cases, prevention is better than cure is very, very valid here as well. So for example, with my daughter, obviously this is not as black and white as we kind of talk about it. With my daughter, she got introduced to screens only through video calls.
Sorry, we have
Video
lost you.
calls help in better milestone growth. And so her only screen time ends up being about video calls. But obviously, my parents, grandparents want to pamper. So there is a space where she gets comfortable, and she's going and watching Bal Ganesh and Peppa Pig when she's at their place. And she's like, what is this? I didn't know this exists. I didn't know this TV could show me cartoons, right? So obviously, it's not a perfect and ideal environment. You need like a team to ensure that it works. But I think a lot of thought and process should go into introducing. If introduced right, what happens next is during management, you're able to set boundaries very clearly. The problem that I notice a lot from the previous generation to now is that boundary setting was very, very patronizing, very, very top down in that sense, right? मैं phone ले लूंगा, मैं अभी बाहर निकल जाऊंगा, right? These are fear based validations that are very common, and we've gone through them growing up. I mean, if we were tough enough, they didn't affect us mentally, but there are obviously some people who've taken this on a more.
I was scared of my dad always. I was like,
there, right? Like, and that was a common style, and we can't even blame them, because that was the best that was available at that time. And security of the home was probably a much bigger priority than it is today. Today we are talking about certain privileges that probably most of these people on the live also will be based on, the home is taken care of, monthly pagar is taken care of, and then you're thinking about these other privileges of dealing with things that are coming because of this privilege. So the second part of management that I was talking after introduction becomes much more nuanced, because then you can set boundaries. You can start treating them like an adult. They are a baby, but you can tell, there are very, very specific strategies here as well. And in parenting, the space is evolving very, very rapidly because the problem is very, very severe, right? So, for example, in eating, there is a specific case called reversing picky eating, and we are spending a lot of energy and time trying to solve that for India. Every baby that turns their head away like this when a piece of food is coming through, a lot of parents can relate to this, and that comes from the lack of agency, right? The lack of agency of the baby deciding, oh, this is interesting, should I be eating this? Can I try this? Let me spit this out. So there is research that proves that a baby needs to try a food 8 to 15 times before they feel like they can send it into their bodies. So they're very, very curious animals, right? In that sense. But what we do, we go with a spoon like this, ek aur bite. Just one more bite was the only strategy, was the singular strategy that the previous generation used. Ek aur kha le, ek aur kha le, ek aur kha le. Now there's no boundary set there, right? Now if the baby says, mere ko nahi chahiye, do you listen to that? Do you treat them with respect? It is very important that we start, realizing this is just in eating. In screen time, it is about, I will pull this phone away if you don't listen to me. Say, we have 3 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. Let's set this and agree to this together. Almost like a partnership, right? Like in business, how we do it. And then we go ahead and create a space where they feel respected. They feel कि मेरे से खींचा नहीं जाएगा कुछ, मेरे से बात करके पूछ के ही कुछ करेंगे लोग. And that starts like creating a space of conversation. नहीं तो they won't even express, they won't even talk. But once you establish this, and this is again top heavy. Starting में कुछ नहीं समझेंगे, obviously, right? Babies, they're just mirroring. But once they realize कि अगर मैंने बोला है ना और ये लोग सुनते हैं, तो they will start using the na very judiciously, right? And that is where boundaries start getting set.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think this is so beautifully said and stated by you, that I think we as parents lack this knowledge, and we just want to force our kids to do certain things based on what we feel is right for them, without understanding their choices. Of course, they may be right or wrong, which is fine. We have to give them that judiciousness to make those choices, but I think it's important that we respect and start building that connection with them. And this actually brings me to my next question about communication. So I think communicating with children is the most important problem that, again, I see with the grown up kids. And
Yeah.
I classically get this. Okay, I'll tell you what happens in my office. I would get a parent and a kid, and both of them would be in such an upset mode, and they'll say, they don't understand me, and the parents would say the kid is a useless kid, and the kid would actually say my parents are useless. Both of them would I would have to put them into two different rooms and say, acha aap thoda bahar wait karo, aap thoda bahar wait karo. Then I will talk to the parent will say shit about their kids and say ye nahi karta, ye nahi karta. Then the parent and the kid would come and say, my parents don't understand this, they have no clues about what I'm going through, they have no ideas, this is what it is, I have this problem, they're constantly nagging me. What is this confusion? And how is this that it is increasing every single day?
Yeah.
And what to do about it?
I think this again has a root at a very early age, and it's probably going to get corrected in the future. What's happened for a transition generation of kids will face this, flux and trauma, unfortunately, right? Because things are moving. We are also human. We are also learning. We will screw up. I never want to take this in the direction of putting the blame on the parents, because the parent always wants the best for the kid. But somewhere in between, the best does not translate into actionable items. It's like a brand. मेरे को best चाहिए. Best क्या होता है? Right? How is best? What is best? Is actually not very defined. So some of these times, like this initial respect that we just spoke about, right? Just in terms of continuity, if that is established, then conversation is starting from a very, very early age, right? I've definitely not perfected it, but in the space of food, if my daughter says no, even if she's hungry, she will not get any more food, right? She has to come back and tell me that Nana Akali, which is Telugu for food. And until then, I'm forcing myself. My parents hate it. Grandparents will come and ऐसा कोई करेगा बच्चे के साथ? तू 2 मॉर्सेल दिया और छोड़ दिया बच्चे को, मतलब वो वेट लॉस हो जाएगा, वो ये हो जाएगा, दिस दैट एक्सेट्रा, राइट? बट I think the longer term investment, and this is a temporary pain for a longer term investment of her coming and telling me, my tummy is empty right now, मेरे को खाना दो. And the day she did that the first time, right, I almost had tears in my eyes, because I was like, my baby at 18 months is able to communicate something that she feels, and she feels hungry right now. My dream state, and a dream state for every parent out there, is to ensure that this goes across the board. Because when you're 5 and 6, your social interactions start, your play starts, your first fights start, right? Your first, bad experiences in that sense start. Someone else's parent shouts at you, feel very, very low, very, very sad. You just had a fight with a close friend, or your friend's friend hit someone and you went to defend and you got hit. All of these, tiny toddler interactions, they all have to come out, because and one of the topics that I'm seeing myself spending a lot of time on is called emotional dysregulation, which is something that even we as adults have, but we go to therapy for it whenever we are not able to manage our emotions. And again, therapy is again
I'm
a
going to
space
cover this part for sure as the next question, but
yeah.
but any at the moment, yes, how to deal with this.
Yeah. So if we are talking about this, so there's obviously introduce it at the baby age where they start communicating to you because they feel something. Fantastic practice to have. By the age of 5, 6, when they're having these initial traumas, initial tiny traumas, let's not call them traumas, but tiny interactions that are heavy for them for their age, they're able to have someone to talk to. And if that gets established, the next few years where their opinions get stronger, right? You have 11-year-old daughter, so I'm pretty sure how it is. They are growing at a pace that we can't even imagine. They're probably where we were at our 18 or 19 in their 10 and 12, right? The exposure that they've got into. So which means we need to backtrack and see, oh, how was I at 18? And how did I feel when I was not respected or not conversed properly at 18? Zoom that back 7 years, 8 years, and then talk to them in that manner. And suddenly you'll start see them reacting. Initially, obviously, there'll be that rebel streak, especially because it's a sudden change, right? When you learn, you want to implement, and you come implement, it's like, ये क्या कर रहा है? पहले तो ये गाली देता था, अभी क्या डायरेक्टली मेरे को सुनने के लिए आ गया. So that initial phase of friction is hard. And but then once you like for me, it was that aha moment where my daughter said it for the first time that I'm hungry. And now it's a commonplace thing, right? Once it gets established, it's commonplace. And I think with teenagers and adolescents, it kind of continues to become harder and harder, because what access they are getting, whether that's to information, whether that's to technology, is unprecedented. Right, this is right now, if there's teenagers and parents of teenagers right now, there, let me just tell everyone that they are going through an unprecedented phase in terms of what a child is able to process, how much a child is able to consume, how much technology is involved around them. Even if you put boundaries, let's say perfect boundaries लगा दिया, बहुत research करके किया, फिर भी the kid is a natural like experiment doer, right? They want to break things every single day. They will break it in every possible boundary that they see. And that's how they learn. So the natural intensity of a human brain is to go try different things, and also try them when there's no supervision, when there's nothing happening. And all of these will influence, will make them the certain way that they are. They are more opinionated. In fact, I was talking to someone who's building a school for emotional resilience. Can you just think of that? There is a need for a school, not just for academia, but for emotional resilience, because they are noticing this pattern of kids becoming so independent so quickly, which means that the need for attachment with a parent or a grandparent is fading out. Why? Because we were secure only after 18, 19, 20, when our first salaries came in. These folks that are going out there right now are getting secure much earlier. It's a good thing. If you process it at large, it's a good thing. But is it happening in a friction-free home environment? Probably not, right? Because you're not ready to accept कि बच्चा ready है अभी खुद के decisions लेने के लिए. I have a 6-year-old niece that can pick the precise dresses that she wants to buy. No parent interference needed. We leave her in West Side on the floor. She runs around. She says, I need a hat, I need a bow, I need a dress, and unicorn is the theme for my birthday. Right? She goes ahead and gives you that with clarity. I don't think we were probably struggling to play with sand or punching each other in the face at that age, right? So this is unprecedented. And this phase is going to be tough, irrespective of how we want to deal with it. The best we can do is try and be more and more empathetic. Try and take the responsibility of fight, communication, anything to do with friction on us, rather than, hey, you also need to. Hey, you also need to, right? This becomes a common this thing. Hey, you need to do this because I am telling you this. Why do they listen to you is not established in their heads, because they're becoming independent, right? They're becoming more and more on their own. You are one among 30, 40 influences in their life. You are still major, but a parent has to at some point start absorbing, saying we are not as important in their lives as we used to be 10 years or 15 years ago. And it's very, very important. I'd like to actually pause there.
So, I mean, I wonder, I mean, so I have this conversation with a lot of parents. I tell them, try using carrot and stick approach. Deal with your kids in a very specific way, the way you would probably, so all teenagers after, let's say 13, 14 years of age, you should rather bargain things out with them and say that, okay, if you probably do well in your academics, then only you get a laptop. Otherwise, you don't get a laptop. Or you don't get a new phone till the time you do not prove, yourself to be hardworking or meet those specific criteria. Or there are certain specific study targets, so there are specific performance targets. You kind of establish those targets, and then you kind of, push your child. I have seen remarkable changes in a couple of students and couple of parents' relationships. I've also, made parents understand that, okay, it's okay to be a singer, and it's okay to accept them as, let's say, a model or a designer or somebody whom you never imagined could be a career, say, let's say 20 years back or 30 years back. What's your take on this? Is it a good approach? Should we tell, parents to follow this, give and take kind of approach? Or you're like, no, it should be only give, and it's okay to not accept anything?
I think let's zoom out a bit and see if we like the carrot and stick at 30 and 40 years of age, right? It'll be great if our incentives are aligned. If I were to ask you what is ideal state at work for anyone, right? If I know that my incentives are aligned in a way that my progress is mapped to my incentives, then I will never need a stick. This is ideal case, right?
But I love putting myself into hardships. If you ask me how do I get motivated, you'll be surprised, but I do some very stupid motivations to myself. For example, I set up a target, and I actually say, okay, I'll not buy any t-shirt till the time I don't till I achieve it. And it may be a very stupid target to really think about, but then I put that to myself. Not that I can't buy t-shirts, but then I will pressurize myself to not think about it. Or I'll say, oh, I'll not eat a chocolate till the time I do not achieve this particular target in my life. And then that makes you keep thinking every time you see a chocolate or a t-shirt, and you're like, oh, I have to do it. That's an amazing reminder also for me.
This is great, right? I mean, let me preface it by saying I'm no expert in the teenager space, but from whatever I've read in early parenting and whatever I know about habit creation in general, what you're talking about fits straight into the action and reward kind of a sequence, right? So I wouldn't really put this in the stick space. It's temporary friction to achieve a reward. There is a reward. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So as long as that is the case, I think the definition of carrot and stick is fine. So it's what we've definitely moved away from is of obviously physical involvement. It's a complete no. It's no more on the table at all. The second one is the kind of boundaries that are set with how will you talk to an adult. Can you tell someone off? Can you pull a phone off because someone is doing too much screen time in a meeting? No, right? So those are also sticks, and those all kind of go out of the game. No locking in the room. Yeah, no stuff that is feeling like it is pure
harmful.
stick. Yeah, it is pure stick. We will not do. If it is friction towards a reward, and again, I come from a humble middle class background, so I think everyone who's been through it knows that there is more happiness, there is more delight when you struggle for something and then eventually get there. That's how we are wired.
Deprivation of something gets you that anxiousness and that energy to really achieve and strive for something.
Yeah, so I think here the only point is deprivation equally motivating for them? You'll need to gauge this, right? Because now if you see them as an individual, you have a 11-year-old or a 14-year-old out there, when they stop from something, they do XYZ tasks and then they get there, just try to empathize and see if the delight is the same degree, or is it yaar ye pura mere ko karwa kyunki isko karwana tha, right? Because that motivation is what makes it happy at the end. If that motivation or that feeling that deprivation is generating is resentment, is anger, we should be very, very conscious, right? And the second thing is, I think, a trust contract. And this is something that I've seen with parents around me. Tu aaj ye kha le, tere ko dessert milega, is okay. I mean, it's not a bad thing as such. But agar dessert nahi diya, एक बार दो बार बस है, बट अगर डेजर्ट हमेशा नहीं दिया और कुछ नेविगेट करके स्नीक आउट किया पेरेंट्स ने, ट्रस्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ब्रेक्स. Children are smart irrespective of what age. I'm telling you, babies are smart. So imagine teenagers, right? So if we start breaking our trust contracts, they are going to actually look at us as a person with low integrity. They can't tell it in that many words, but they are like, ये बोलता है, करता नहीं है, तो मैं क्यों करूं? And you don't know when that switch is going to switch on. So 1-2 times you'll be like, okay, इसने कर लिया, great strategy. Suddenly in 1 month down the line, you're feeling like you're facing a behavioral problem, right? And why? Because in their head, the switch is on that बोलता है करता नहीं, तो मैं भी बोलता हूँ करता नहीं.
Building that trust is very important. And I agree to you on this, that I have seen parents, kind of hiding their own fallacies from their kids. and then expecting all the kids to probably share everything with them, and that doesn't work. They
Yeah.
have to accept that they are normal human beings with problems and with shortcomings, and they should be open to probably at least accepting that okay, I have some problems, probably I can't share it with you right now,
Yeah.
probably there'll be a day when I'll do this,
Yeah.
but understand that I am also not perfect, and it's okay for me to say sorry to you.
Yeah.
And I think that word of saying sorry and accepting your mistakes in front of your kids is a very important thing.
It is. They mimic, right? At the end of the day, forget what you're telling to them. When when we come into, these behavioral meetings, when some, mentor is coming and sharing gyan inside a corporate setup, they are talking about body language is 80% in the body. Like your communication is 80% body language. And everyone's like, wow. But when you're at your home, you're like, मैंने बोला बेड से निकलो, क्यों नहीं निकल रहे हो? No, that is not it. You go pick them up, put them down. They'll be like, अच्छा, अगर मैं नहीं करूंगा, तो पापा उठा के मेरे को नीचे रखेंगे. ये बहुत फिजिकल हो गया है. This they understand directly. तो you end up saying that 200 times. They're like, कुछ तो बोल रहा है ये साइड में, चल जाने देते हैं. And in fact, they feel that it is a ironic loop here. They feel that by doing that mischief, they're getting their attention because you are fully focused on trying to correct them, and they love it, right? Because otherwise you're probably sitting on your phone or at work. But when the baby is doing something insanely risky, or the kid is, stepping on top of the stairs and bending over, they know they'll get attention,
My
right?
God.
So
My
it's ironically a loop. What you need to do there is completely take the situation in your control and try and respectfully get them out and say, this is how I set a boundary. This is how we do it in our home. And that's why this is not a generic rule, right? There are different thresholds in every family, right? क्या खाते हो, कितना bear कर सकते हो, कितने पैसे है, all of these are variable, right? So we can't pass a broad stroke and say sab follow करो. But what is generally true is respectfully disengaging in these situations. And with a baby, you're lifting them. With a teenager, it's about, I'm going to give you your space. We'll talk about this in 15 minutes when you're less angry, but go to your room right now, calm down. I know you're a better person than this. I know we don't have to shout at each other. If I shouted, I apologize. And I will talk to you when I'm calmer. You will talk to me when you are calmer. Let's talk again in 15 minutes. This almost feels like, यार 13-year-old से कौन करेगा ये? भग, मैं तो अभी, I'll just tell them off, right? But the one hack that I tell parents so that they don't blame themselves on this is, go back to when you were a 13-year-old and some random uncle, chacha, blah, blah, came at you and shouted at you for something, and you remember that today. If you recall, you'll be like, yaar, tab ye hua tha, maine ek baar chair खींच liya tha, and this is a real example. Like I have the visual in front of my head. I pulled a chair away when one of my uncles was about to sit, and I got told off so badly by so many people that until now it just stayed in my head saying, इतना reaction मिल सकता है, बाप रे.
Okay, wonderful. I think the third area which I want to touch upon, and I have got Nikhil Nikhil Gupta asking me a similar question, and thank you, Mayank, also for posting a text. About emotional problems, right? And emotional stability, including people who are grown ups, and how to face it, and how to really look at the emotional aspect of children. Very difficult. They are going through serious emotional turbulence right now. I have started, and I'm surprised that kids of 14 years, 15 years are going for therapy right now. Yeah. Parents are not able to talk about it. They're not able to give them the emotional support. What should parents do, not only from teenagers, but adulthood, and probably, to the entire thing, that entire space of emotions, how to build that emotional connect, what to do, how to adopt them to really become emotionally strong. And I think I do see problems around us in terms of, let's say, the biggest thing that today the teenagers, the youngsters are going through is their peer group, and the peer pressure or the bullying is not something which we faced as much as in our childhood. So I think the things have changed where peer pressure is way more. It's almost 10x of what it used to be. We would really care at. I mean, I was bullied in my school, but then most of the other kids were absolutely okay. They never cared about it. Yeah. But today, every child is there to find his place into this world and say, "Yaar, mere ko fit hona hai. Emotionally, ye hai. Isne mujhe aisa bol diya. Ye ho gaya. I am not okay." blah blah blah. Plus they're pampered, and suddenly they realize that they're not good for anything when they see the competition at the world level. औकात ही नहीं नजर आती है, मतलब they are nowhere, and then they figure out, oh, I am nobody in this big planet, what to do with it. So I think very important question, how to build that emotional resilience, how to build that emotional capability with kids.
Yeah, I think this is the toughest. This is probably not got a straight up strategy or solution that I have also yet read up that answers the entire gamut. But some fundamental tenets continue to be what you mentioned a little while earlier, which is parents being able to accept their fallacies and resolve them and show them that even emotions can be worked on. अगर चोट लगी है तो बैंडेड और दवाई, अगर इमोशंस गलत है तो vulnerability, repair, that process needs to be something that they see at home. You know, I had one big question, right? Like as a parent, me and my wife, we are college sweethearts, so we know each other for 18 years. We've practically grown with each other more than I've grown at my parents now. So it's that much of time and interaction. So obviously we fight, right? So when we grow up together, you know that it's like having a roommate or a best friend in the room. And बहुत झगड़े होते हैं, right? When my baby was about to come, I was very worried कि हम तो बहुत जोर जोर से चिल्लाते हैं, झगड़ते हैं, तो ये कैसा है? How will this impact? Do I need to suddenly become like this शांत इंसान, which I'm not, because we passionately discuss topics, right? So what had come across when I was reading up on this specific topic was that if they see the fight, they need to see the recovery. So don't recover in private, but fight in public, because anger में कुछ हो गया, किचन में झगड़ा हो रहा था, और उसके बाद आप लोग बच्चे को सुला दिए, और बेडरूम में उसके बाद you had a conversation and you figured it out कि ठीक है, मतलब गुस्से में नहीं सोते हैं, रिजॉल्व करके सोते हैं, कुछ भी अपना जो भी कोपिंग मैकेनिज्म है इन रेस्पेक्टिव हाउसहोल्ड्स. What I realized is if they also see the repair, if they see that physical expression of repair, again, right? They don't care about, oh, I am very sorry. Itana passion nahi. That tone, they will gauge. That, oh, they are not angry, they are sorry. बाहर पे चिल्ला रहे थे, ये तो चिल्लाना नहीं है, ये तो थोड़ा soft है, मतलब इसमें थोड़ा प्यार है, right? A hug, a kiss, a physical expression of love, they understand, right? So when they see that hurt and they see this repair, they are like, अच्छा, ये होता है, ये human है, ये normal है, ये सब के लिए, it is okay to be prepared for this.
It's okay for parents to cry in front of them.
Exactly. And again, if we apply the lens of fathers, right? For me particularly, the role of fathers is changed immensely. There is research that says, and this research numbers keeps making me happy and scared at the same time. Parents of this generation are spending 300% more time with their kids, especially fathers. So fathers of this generation are spending 300% more time with their kids than any generation before, right? So that means 3x directly. 2 घंटे है तो 6 घंटे हो रहे, 6 घंटे है तो 18 घंटा हो रहा है. Work from home है, मैं तो I'm literally like waiting for my baby to knock at this door at any point in time during this life, right? So our exposure has become that much more. When we were limited, we were kind of used as tools of fear, back in the day. Papa आएंगे, ना करेंगे, right? Like that kind of a tone. From there, we're evolving to, I'm also emotionally vulnerable. Yeah, like I have these weak moments.
But don't you think that balancing act, me and my wife do this, we kind of do the balancing act where one person is supposed to take the final decision, say, oh, this guy's decision is not to be questioned, and kind of building and establishing an authority. And in spite of the fact that, each at certain points, my daughter knows that, okay, this person is going to take the final decision for this thing, and this person is going to take the final decision for this thing, and that's how she will manage the conversation.
I think
you do that.
I think they gauge our strengths. Again, we need to give them credit where due. For example, I love spending time making my baby look good. Like I learned YouTube video देख के pony कैसे बनाना. It sounds, I mean, this is me being very vulnerable right now, right? So like मैं YouTube पे video देखता हूँ pony कैसे बनाना. My wife on the other end, super practical, super fast. If my wife gets my baby ready, it's 12 minutes. If I do it, is 1 hour 20 minutes, right? That kind of a difference. So my baby is starting to realize that competence इस चीज में मेरे को अगर अच्छा दिखना है आज, और उसको भी ओपिनियन है थोड़ा बहुत कि now I feel good, I'm going to my nani's house, let me dress up or let me get the best bindi and stuff like that. She actually comes to me consciously and she says addam means mirror. So she realized that going in front of the mirror means getting ready, right? And she only does that when she comes to me. So she's respecting that I invest time. She's noticed that एक 10-15 बार, और उसमें competence का उसका एक ये आ गया, right? And you expand this to, older kids, right? Academia में, whether who do you go to when you have things at school? Emotional, who do you go to when do you have things that, like when you've just fought? It will be ideal if they go to both equally, right? It is perfect, it is proper equal parenting if we get to that point, but we know that we are in the phase of transition. तो अपने strengths में जहां पे उनको उनके सामने vulnerable होना, उनके सामने competence दिखाना is easy, वो they will gauge. So if you have strengths, as a couple, you kind of decide saying ये मेरा vertical है, ये मेरा vertical है, हम दोनों इसमें experts बन जाएंगे. And that's a great approach. I just love the sound of it, because we are then also giving the kid the onus of choosing कि
No, no.
किस
In fact,
चीज के
we
लिए
manage
किसके
our
पास जाओ.
fights amongst ourselves also like this only now. So initially when we got married, we would fight so much.
Hmm.
But then we kind of sat together and say, "Bhai, this is your area and this is my area, and we're not getting into each other's lives like that.
Absolutely.
So this is your decision, and whatever your decision will be finally respected
Yes.
and taken as the final word. So this is your domain for final selection. Go ahead. This is my area of expertise, and I'm going to do this. And that's exactly what you're doing when as parents also, that bhai ye wala part hai, this is what I am good at, you do not interfere and I am going to take care of it.
Yeah.
100% my responsibility to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And maybe
I
just
think
one last point on that, right? Is sorry, your voice cracked in between. Please finish. Were you
no, no,
saying
no. So
something?
it's fair. I'm just trying to validate my parenting with you.
See,
So
first
that
thing is,
I
it is an
understand where this
evolving
is going
graph,
right now.
right? Don't ever put yourself in a situation that, or anyone who's listening to the live, do not put yourself in a situation, because I've been there and it only hurts to think saying, ye vardi hai ki nahi? Am I blaming, like, am I in a position where I'm blaming either the partner or myself? Doesn't work. We all know कि गलतियां करते हैं, evolve होते हैं, perfect situation पे arrive होते हैं. Direct perfect does not happen in parenting. Let's just put that to rest. Even with the baby, holding a baby also, you will end up swinging the baby, almost dropping the baby, etc. ये सब parent के साथ होता है. This is reality. There is no perfection that can be achieved straight out of the box. In this, there's probably only one thing I would like to highlight. They borrow respect structures, power structures from us. So when we do this, we should really, really adhere to the contract of how much we respect our partner for their decision making. Because if I undermine my wife's decision, even if I disagree with it at that time in front of the child, she thinks it is okay to undermine. And this is very important when they're becoming rebellious, because when you're a rebel, you'll need to even more understand power structures, because you'll know कि एक line
I'll
के
give
बाद
you a real
बहुत गाली
example.
पड़ने
Sorry,
वाली.
Raghuveer.
Yes.
I have to mention this case, okay, and came to me very clearly, okay, and the female was getting abused by the father in some way or the other. Then there were two kids. Both of them I have mentored personally, and they both reacted in two different ways. So one kid kind of decided to move out of the house and kind of shut himself out from the parents' conversations and said, okay, you go your way and I'm going my way. The second child started blaming the parents big time and did not perform well. So the first kid, what he did was that, he kind of shut himself out and he started doing fantastically well. So he's doing exemplarily good because he kind of stopped himself from talking to the parents. The second child was absorbing everything, from the parents and ended up ruining, his or her career around, and did not study, did not do anything, and then constantly blaming the parents, saying, you are shit, you are shit, you are shit. And then the parents are kind of saying, you, why are you not doing it? Tum bekas bacche ho, hum to, हम बदकिस्मत है कि तुम्हारे जैसे बच्चे हमको मिल गए.
That's very
I
sad.
understand. What precisely would you give me? Give me like one very clear help or advice to this kind of a situation, rather than a generic statement. I'm really looking for absolute solutions if possible.
I think in this case, first thing we have to notice is that the same two parents don't parent two kids in the same manner. Even if they are
True.
twins, forget age, even if they are twins, the same two parents are not the same two parents to the kid. This sounds like paradoxical, but it is absolutely true. Why? Because we change with our situations and reactions. So, first thing I would say is take a step back from uh, judging how the first one reacted or the second one reacted. The outcome is obviously tangible कि एक का career अच्छा है और एक का career अच्छा नहीं है. But their respective reasons are fully justified to wherever they got to. So the professional solution to this is to get them to therapy, get them to understand where did this root cause of I'm going to process this in blame, I'm going to process this in directional anger. Where did this switch happen? And who did they learn from? What was their influence, right? Because they learn to cope with their surroundings and their intelligence kind of combined. At some point, either their parents, even if dysfunctional, their parents say they borrowed something about how the situations are being handled, or a role model or an inspiration or someone out there that they could kind of gather this from. So I think the directional short answer is they need to understand the root cause, and that is only possible in therapy. Paresh, am I audible? Hey, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Did you catch my response to it before?
Yes, I did. I did get it. So
Okay.
I'm getting it. Just that somehow my YouTube got snapped out. Anyway, so I mean, one is therapy, and that you mentioned. I have got one question again from Varun. He is asking about suicides,
Hmm.
and he's saying Kota is a suicide center. We are witnessing two suicides every month. That's public knowledge, maybe more, and lot of students going through emotional stress. We do getting students in IITs committing suicide. We get students in IIM Ahmedabad, then IIM Bangalore, and all of these places committing suicide. What is this going on, and how to handle this? And I'll tell you, this is one of my missions in life also. I have kind of helped 600, 700 children in this kind of situation where they were about to go through this, and I've kind of consoled them, counseled them, helped them out. But what is your response in reference to parenting also? And in reference to the kids also, as to what they should do, right, to avoid such a situation. And how would you actually make this better at all, if at all you have to?
I think, again, first have to preface it with not my space of expertise. Paresh, fantastic work. It's so inspiring that you've helped so many people. I'd love to know your means, because if I get someone in my circle, I'd love to kind of transfer them to you. Uh, uh, Fantastic work there. And I think I know a couple more institutions that are doing some good work here. So I keep looking at this. This is a space of fear and interest for me. I've not actively, entered this, but it is something that really bothers me. And I think it's a consequence of amount of exposure. Exposure meaning more opportunity for both influencing and de-influencing, right? More inspiration, more bullying. Both are happening. If inspiration was curtailed, the impacts were not so great because the brain is beautiful. It will eventually find its way to get there. But if bullying is scaling up, if that exposure of negative, not just bullying, even subtle forms of it, is kind of scaling up, then the emotional load is piping up and there is no outlet to that. So from a parenting lens, I think the ability to establish how it is okay to communicate what you're feeling is the one line solution to this. Because worst to worst case scenario, you will get to know that they are in this space. I think one of the parts about suicide that really scares me is the note after, right? It is always after ki you justify and find out the reasons ki uske dimag mein ye sab ho raha tha. It's very unfortunate that it is that way. If the entire society is incentivized towards making a space where sharing is okay, right? That is fantastic. And the first unit of society is your home, right? Your home and how you parent them. If you don't feel safe at home, to kind of express your feelings, then I think it kind of gets ruined at large. A quick example here is my daughter behaves in her best behavior at her nani's, at her dadi's, at her cousin's place, when she's meeting siblings. Best behavior, right? Like always smiling, photos lene ke liye ready, playing, all the good behaviors that we are excited about. Ki dekh mera bachcha kitna cool hai, right? Comes home, absolutely breaks into a tantrum, right? And this is common behavior. I was trying to understand कि वहां पे जैसे रह सकती है, मेरे साथ क्यों नहीं रह सकते, मेरे घर में क्यों नहीं रह सकते? Only to realize that this is an extremely healthy practice. They were feeling a lot of things. When that sister said, get off the cycle, उसको लगा बुरा, but वहां पे वो उतर गई और स्माइल कर दी. उसने वो लोड लिया अंदर, right? She basically stored that in her database saying, मेरे को बहन ने बोल दिया निकल तू साइकिल से. From there, she comes home, all these pent up emotions are, there. And the crying, the tantrum is coming from the inability to express and process them. So a tantrum that we very commonly see in kids in 0 to 6 is their way of expressing. It is not bad behavior. It is extremely healthy behavior. You want to regulate it. You want to teach them how to express it eventually. But what they are doing is, Papa, I feel very safe near you. So I will show you my worst. I will show you everything. And if we say, mat ro, mat kar, we are basically creating the first steps for andar rakhna better hai, bahar bolna galat hai. And that's
what we have taught our previous generations, probably my generation, where we have told boys not to cry, definitely. For girls also, we have frowned upon it and say, Arey, tu, why are you crying like this?
Yeah.
Ye, wo. Kind of giving them the wrong reasons to probably, get into these mode. But we became stronger. So, my question becomes very different, So, was it not better to do what my parents did, that we at least were stronger than this current generation where the kids are more pampered and then kind of
I think strength is overrated. Happiness is underrated. That's my one liner. And I feel, okay, here's my counter question to you. If with this process that our parents followed, out of 1 million great strong kids, there's one suicide, is it acceptable to you that this approach is okay?
It is lesser than the current number.
It is lesser than the current, but if I tell you that we have the moral responsibility to say yes or no to this approach, even one suicide is life, right? Like if that approach is leading towards more and more probability of strength, yes, but also suicide on the other hand, then I will always lean towards a safer approach that's probably not making them as strong, but is making them happier, secure, people who are
my take
okay
is
inside.
I think there's a lot of connection which is lost, and it's very superficial connection with children that we have created. I'll go to school now, and so I'll believe me when we say don't put a stick on them.
Yeah.
We don't even give them a hug also. Believe me, in any college, in any school in Delhi, you're not even allowed to touch a child.
Yeah.
Now, imagine that the child is deprived of any physical connection with the teacher 100%. I used to be hugged by my teachers like crazy. They would kiss me every morning and I would come back with their lipstick marks, and I would feel so happy about it. Like, oh, chalo, aaj to kiss mila. This is not acceptable today. The child gets no physical emotional connection, right? And at that one point they're seeking it out. So that's how they grow. Then suddenly their physical connection is with their friends and peers, jahan par wo sab kuch kar rahe hain. And then they start doing everything because they're not getting it from anybody else. So they start connecting physically with a lot of them, get into wrong things. Suddenly when they realize that they're nowhere, people will misuse them. People will, and they have no, because they have not had any emotional connection with anybody in their family, they don't have a support system. Hamara ekta strong support system tha that अरे मम्मी नहीं है तो दादी है, दादी नहीं तो चाचा है, चाचा नहीं तो कोई तो. So some emotional support system existed. Today it is very nuclear. Mom dad है, mom dad के साथ नहीं चल रहा है ठीक से. If you're not having conversations, I think you have nobody to go to. And I think that's where I see the biggest challenge right now. That do not have a go-to person other than your parents. And if your parents are not able to cope up with it, or you kind of had a bad relationship with them, then you're dead and gone. And the second part is also, again, it comes from this entire peer structure,
Hmm.
where the problem is why these suicides are happening at, let's say, an IIT
Hmm.
or a quota is because of that over motivation or overhyped stories.
Hmm.
We were not exposed to so much of stories. I mean, so believe me, I did not know what it means to be a topper.
Yeah.
I just became a topper. So
Yeah.
okay, and then I realized, oh, there's some value to it. But now every child is like pushed to becoming a topper, being so good at something. They see more competition, they see more people doing wow, and the wow stories are so highly rated.
Hmm.
The negatives are not shown and they're not celebrated. And
Hmm.
I that's something which I definitely feel is a concern. How to celebrate failures? How do you think parents should celebrate failures or deal with them so that kids become stronger?
That's a fantastic question. First, I wasn't aware of what's happening in schools. It really makes me sad. My teacher from kindergarten, Alice, she still lives in the colony, and I look at her, watching her grow old. It feels like one of my mother figures is growing old. इतना attachment है मेरे को
True.
उनसे. So it's very sad to hear that physical touch is out of the game. On the second point, that they start seeking more from their surroundings. One thing, very actionable advice here is consent is trainable from the age of 1 if you do it right. So now that you are getting into social structures where they're more independent, they're finding peers as their main source of information. It's very important to draw black and white in certain spaces जहाँ पे irreparable damage हो सकता है, right? And I mean, right now at 18 months, I'm already training my daughter with bad touch and good touch, right? It's a very, very fundamental concept. And even when cousins, uncles, anyone who's holding her, right, she will push away, and she's starting to learn when she's uncomfortable. And if they say that no, ek kisi de dena, I will shout at them. Like, I have no, irrespective of how close they are, I will just lose my cool at that point to just establish that bhai, ये गलत behavior है, उसको respect करना चाहिए, because she is learning how to be outside. तेरे सामने safe है, it's okay, but she's also going to live her own life when she's out there. So actionable advice for any parent that's looking at it: look for how to train consent early, whatever the age of your baby is. There is age appropriate advice available on the internet, that same exposure that we should take advantage of, and try and see at 5 how is it done, at 8 how is it done, at 10 how is it done. You have very, very structured advice available across the age group. On the second part, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What was the second part that you mentioned?
No, so the question was that, how do you really help and cope up with this kind of situation, and in
Yeah.
emotional uh, deprivation?
Yeah. So, I mean, if it is a functional family, let's assume that that is the case, the amount of effort needed by parents and other people is more. So, you mentioned the word celebrating failures. I think that's ideal state. We need to be at a point of acknowledging failures and making them feel okay. A lot of suicides stem from the fact that what I have done is not okay. And the reaction to not okay is worse than death, is worse than self harm, right? The embarrassment and shame and guilt and resentment that comes from my folks is so much more harder than me processing death. If we are at that level of acknowledgement, then our first progress is to say that हम भी गलतियां करते हैं, हमने भी प्रोसेस किया है, आप गलतियां करो, हम मिलके सॉर्ट आउट करेंगे. आप गलतियां करो, मेरे से नहीं हो रहा है, चाची के पास जाओ, मासी के पास जाओ, right? Establish that effort of acknowledging that, see, I want my kid to succeed immensely. There is no denying that. We are Indian parents, we are coded that way, right? So we also have to just think about that for a moment, saying, अगर मेरे से failure process नहीं हो रहा है, तो मैं भी मदद सीखूं, right? I should go to someone and tell, saying, for example, with this niece I was talking about, super passionate, super rebellious. My wife becomes her peddama, basically badi mummy, right? So she shares what happens in school. She shared that she copied in an examination the other day, and she's trusting her to not tell her mother. And we respect that, right? We are creating that space for her, क्योंकि वहां पे घर में it is a different environment to this. She's also safe there, but certain topics, right? Certain nuances. Like for teenagers, it'll be, your infatuations and your first relationships and your fights and your, friends are teasing me kind of this thing. For toddlers, it is punches in the face and things like that. So at every age, you'll need to find इसके लिए हमारे फैमिली में, हमारे सेफ स्पेस में, हमारे फ्रेंड सर्कल में कौन है जो इसके साथ बात कर सकता है. Then ideally you'll save a lot of cost in therapy in future. You'll ideally save a lot of damage in the future, because I think as parents sometimes we also take up ये मेरा ही project है, मैं ही करूंगा सब. Not needed at all. We are human. We are very, very vulnerable to failure because we've had quite different paths. Let's just put it that way. So we don't need to take the load of what we cannot process. We should acknowledge that. That is us acknowledging our own failure. इसमें से भी वो सिग्नल लेंगे कि अच्छा पापा ये नहीं कर सकते, इसीलिए मेरे को मम्मी के पास भेज रहे हैं, मेरे बड़ी मम्मी के पास भेज रहे हैं, राइट. एंड दैट एफर्ट, दैट फिजिकल एफर्ट, बिकॉज वी डोंट लिव इन जॉइंट फैमिली सेटअप्स. इट टेक्स अ विलेज टू रेज अ चाइल्ड वाज ट्रू, एंड देयर इज अ फकिंग विलेज इन द फैमिली, राइट. सॉरी अबाउट स्वेरिंग, बट देयर इज अ विलेज इन द फैमिली. बट नाउ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट विलेज दैट इज सुपर स्कैटर्ड. तो एफर्ट लगाओ, हर संडे लेके जाओ दूसरे लोगों के पास. इट्स नॉट लाइक अपन बटन प्रेस करेंगे और फिगर आउट करेंगे कि ये सेफ है. नहीं, द किड हैज टू इन्वेस्ट द टाइम. सी दैट हमेशा बड़ी मम्मी आके मेरे साथ ऐसे बात करती है, तो मैं भी उनके साथ कुछ शेयर कर सकता हूँ. देन इवेंचुअली यू स्टार्ट नोटिसिंग कि सेम फैमिली that equally loves, even today in disparate structures, love is not faded, access and proximity has faded. So what you'll need to do is invest that effort in creating that access and proximity. Kids will be better off.
So Raghuveer, ideally this is a 45-minute conversation and we have exceeded it by far, by more than 20 minutes. We are on 12:05 already.
Oh my God.
So
I didn't even notice the time.
The conversation that I did not want, I swear on God, I don't want this conversation to stop. I'm like, okay, can I just call up Raghuveer more and, just continue this conversation over the phone and not finish this off. But you have been so fantastic. I think this is just the beginning of my conversation with you. I promise you. You are such a conversationalist. It is so much fun to talk to you that I was so engrossed in thinking about so many things. Ye wo, aisa. I think amazing. So I think everybody enjoyed it. I'm getting a lot of comments and feedbacks on the session as well, where people are asking questions. But it was wonderful talking to you. It was super great, and I am going to bother you more. I'm sure there are a lot of parents who keep coming to me. Of course, I think you should start looking at the more teenage problems than the early age problems right now, because that's a bigger problem that particularly people like me face. Where this is a big problem, seriously, because
Absolutely.
Early age you don't get to see, but these signs are then manifested later when you kind of start seeing what's the outcome of the parenting in the past. But that's when probably parents wake up and realize, oh, we have not done it right. And what are those corrective actions to take that point? I'll definitely be reaching out to you. But thank you so much, Raghuveer, for being here. And it was super lovely talking to you.
It's been a delight. It's been an absolute delight. Please continue the good work that you're doing. Some of the things that I got to know in this conversation about your mentorship, as well as helping people about suicide, is super inspiring. When I'm passionate about a topic, I really struggle to stick to the agenda. So I know we've shot over time, but I hope that everyone who stayed on or everyone who watches this later can sense the passion rather than the time. I think the last closing comment for me would be that I'd love to build in the space, right? Like I generally am in the space where I now understand access and exposure because of whatever the last 10 years have been. And I'm sure you do as well, you doing this with streaming and everything else that you're doing. So would love for more technologists and more people who understand this space to start seeing these also as serious problems, understand the capitalist angle to this, or where is it a problem worthy enough of money, and then practically build things with that same exposure that is causing harm. We should be, people kind of trailblazing that change of using that exposure to repair things, because it's not like we're going to go back. This is just going forward. So I'd love to chat more with you, love to hear more from you, love to get ideas. In fact, and see how we can
while you're sharing this with me, there was this conversation in my class. Sorry, I'm again taking 2 minutes of the time further, but this one I idea which is coming to my mind right now, okay? Which is one of my students asked me, if we were to introduce a subject in the current curriculum, what would you do? And my answer was, I would want to build a curriculum around emotional stability and emotional strength. And I would love to work with you on this if you're interested. I'm just saying it on my life so that it stays recorded for all the times. That I would love that we create something productive about emotional stability. There is no content around this. We are just bothered about marks and maths and physics and chemistries and accountancies and others, but we are not talking about emotional strength for children. If we can actually create a curriculum around this, let's go to, let's say, a CBSE or a school, or try and put this as a part of the structured learning also. I think it will be a great thing to create, for children, for parents. I don't know how to put it together, but just planting one idea into your mind, and let's see if
Happy to
it will work.
contribute any way I can. Again, I will preface it with saying I'm not an expert in the field, but I'm speaking to a lot of experts. It's fascinating how much depth exists. Growth hat on for a moment. I think we should just figure a way to crack Byju's to do this. If Byju's puts in emotional resilience in their curriculum, the entire country is going to know this.
Precisely. So thank you so much, Raghuveer. Have a great day, and lovely talking to Raghuveer. And stay tuned, everyone. Every Sunday morning, 11 a.m. is my LinkedIn and YouTube live now. So see you next time again with another speaker on some amazing topic. And stay tuned. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Thank you.